Good afternoon and welcome to the Maine Dems Rise and Organize Rally, sponsored by Pretty Flaherty and the Maine Association of Realtors. You're going to hear from some incredible featured speakers, including Senator Elizabeth Warren, Senator Bernie Sanders, Governor Janet Mills, so stay tuned and get ready to rise and organize to win this November. We encourage you to visit www.maindems.org/rise-and-organize-community to find out how you can join in today's rally. We encourage you to watch virtually with your friends and family, and check out the recipe for our signature cocktail and mocktail if you haven't already. You can also download our Rise and Organize poster. Write the issue you are rising and organizing for in 2020 on it, take a picture of yourself holding it, and post it on social media using the hashtag #RiseAndOrganize. Finally, make sure you check our rally bingo card. Print it out and play with your friends and family.
To kick off our program, Molly and Dana, the first tribal ambassador of the Penobscot Nation and member of the Penobscot Nation Tribal Council, will offer a unity message. Please join me in welcoming Molly and Dana.
My name is Molly and Dana, and I am a proud citizen of the Penobscot Nation, where I also serve as our tribal ambassador. When I think about Maine, I think of the indigenous Wabanaki nations, Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, Micmac, and Maliseet. Our ancestors have been stewards of these lands and waters for thousands of years, long before Maine and long before statehood. We are still here, and we will continue our ancestors' vision. This pandemic has highlighted the racial disparities and inequality in a lot of our systems. I think that when we go to vote, we need to put people in positions of leadership and power that understand these systems and why they aren't working and why they need to be made more just. We also need to think about our most sacred resource, Mother Earth. We all need to work together to fight climate change and improve the health and quality of our environment for us and future generations yet to come. We need to unite around the most sacred things about our state and our country, and I truly believe that we will. Thank you.
Please welcome the chair of the Maine Democratic Party, Kathleen Mara.
Good afternoon. I'm Kathleen Mara, chair of the Maine Democratic Party. I'm honored to speak with you today for this historic gathering of Maine Democrats. I'm very disappointed we had to cancel our state convention in Bangor that was supposed to be happening right now. Our staff, our convention committee, and the Penobscot Democrats were working incredibly hard to put on an exciting event and build momentum to win this November. But it was the right thing to do. Times are indescribably difficult right now for thousands of Mainers and millions of Americans. For many that were already hanging on by a thread, this virus has done irreparable harm. And for each and every one of us, there's absolutely no question that this crisis has changed our lives, maybe forever. But do you know what hasn't changed? Our values. We are the party who believes healthcare is a basic human right. We are the party who believes that climate change is a real crisis that demands urgent action. We are the party who believes anyone should be able to work a job, one job, for a living wage. And we are the party who believes that wealth inequality is growing and is leaving people behind. We're the party who believes in public education. We're the party who believes in equal pay for equal work. And we're the party who believes in science. This year has been challenging for all of us, but I'm hopeful because we are ready to fight for our values, because that's what we've always done, and that's what makes me proud to lead the Maine Democratic Party. People often ask me what I did in politics before becoming chair of the Maine Dems. I wasn't an elected official. I didn't stand up at my city council meetings to share my concerns. I never even knocked on doors for a candidate. So what did I do? I voted. But 4 years ago, checking the box for who I thought was going to be the first woman president wasn't enough. I realized that devastating reality when I woke up on November 9th, 2016. That pit in my stomach is a feeling I'll never forget. I'll also never forget what it felt like to hop in my car and drive to Washington, D.C. and march on the White House alongside millions of women, seeing the passion, energy, and, let's face it, The fury of women ready to lead the resistance to this president ignited my inner activist. I kept marching, I kept protesting, I kept organizing, and eventually I revitalized my local Democratic committee here in Kittery, where I live, because my good friend Nancy Stolberg tapped me on the shoulder and asked me to. I stepped up because another woman told me I was up to the task. I took the job because, in the words of Rabbi Hillel, if not now, when? If not me, who? I'm glad I did, because I found a community with the Democratic Party. I want to acknowledge that I wouldn't be in this community without all of you today, without other women encouraging me to fight for our common values. That's important, especially now. Just like we did 100 years ago when we marched, organized, and demanded the right to vote, we have to make our voices heard in every corner of government. And we're doing that. While a woman didn't break the glass ceiling for the presidency 4 years ago, we did take one look at our new president and thought, why not me? Right here in Maine, we made history when we elected Janet Mills as our first woman governor. More women are serving in our state legislature than ever before. And this November, we're going to elect our first woman as vice president alongside Joe Biden. But you don't have to run for office to make a difference in politics. All you need is a passion for what's right and a willingness to fight for it. So today, if you haven't found that community that so many of us have found, I want to invite you to join us. We have a place for you. Because while it's true we can't march together in person right now, we can still make our voices heard. We can phone bank. We can write letters. We can talk to our friends. We can join our local Democratic committees. We can run for office, and then we can vote. We're still fighting for our values, and for our values to win, we have to elect Democrats up and down the ballot this November. So join the Democratic Party and help us defeat Donald Trump and elect Joe Biden. Help us defeat Susan Collins. Help us re-elect Chellie Pingree and Jared Golden, and help us expand our majorities in the state legislature. Come find a home with the Maine Democrats by visiting maindems.org/volunteer. We need you in this fight more than ever before.
Throughout the program, we will be taking a few moments to thank our sponsors who helped make this program possible. We'd like to first recognize our two technology sponsors, Pretty Flaherty and the Maine Association of Realtors. Pretty Flaherty's Government Affairs Practice Group is the leading government affairs and advocacy group in the state and region, with deep roots in Maine politics and unmatched strategic insight and effectiveness across all levels of state government. Comprised of the most well-known and experienced lobbyists and attorneys in the state, the group helps a diverse range of clients navigate the intersection of business and public policy. Pretty Flaherty and its Government Affairs Practice Group are proud to support the Maine Democratic Party's 2020 Rise and Organize Rally. The Maine Association of Realtors is pleased to sponsor this year's gathering and welcomes you to this virtual rally. Since 1936, the Maine Association of Realtors has been the voice for real estate and private property owners across Maine. We provide services to more than 5,400 independent contractor realtors, 800 real estate companies, and 420 affiliated businesses to help them prosper. Last year, Maine's real estate industry accounted for $12.2 billion, or 18% of Maine's gross state product. We advocate for the rights to own, transfer, and use real property. We grow Maine's economy and build Maine communities. Ask a Realtor, a member of the Maine Association of Realtors.
And now, he was the Secretary of Labor under President Obama and is currently serving as chair of the Democratic National Committee. Please welcome Tom Perez.
Hello, Maine Democrats. Tom Perez here. I'm thrilled to be joining you today to thank you for your tireless commitment to our party and to our country during this crisis. Your leadership is what keeps me optimistic about our future. Maine Democrats have so much to be proud of. In 2018, we worked with you to help elect Janet Mills as the state's first ever female governor. I remember being out there about a week or so before the election, and the enthusiasm was infectious. So much energy out there. And Democrats flipped the state Senate and expanded the blue majority in the state House. And those elections have had a tremendous positive impact on the people of Maine. Since taking charge, Maine Democrats have expanded Medicaid, making thousands of Mainers eligible for health insurance, and made prescription drugs more affordable and accessible. You've expanded access to paid leave, worked to close the pay gap, invested in clean energy, and banned the cruel practice of so-called conversion therapy for minors. Now, all of that progress is on the line. Make no mistake about it. Maine is a battleground state. Regaining the Senate goes through Maine, and that's why we must do everything we can to defeat Susan Collins and elect Democrats across the country this November. Senator Collins has voted with Donald Trump 94% of the time. 94%, folks. Now listen, I've been married over 30 years and I love my wife. And I love her a hell of a lot better than Donald Trump, but I'm not even sure my wife and I agree on 94% of the things. So folks, Senator Collins, as you know, has been a key vote for Donald Trump on giving tax cuts to the wealthy and confirming Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, a vote that we all know puts women's reproductive rights in danger like never before. She even joined Mitch McConnell in defending Donald Trump from impeachment, saying Trump, and I quote, learned his lesson. Based on his response to the pandemic, I'm not sure Donald Trump is capable of learning anything. Mainers and the American people are tired of Republican leadership. That's why over the past 3 years, they've gone to the polls to elect Democrats in Maine and across the country. Republicans should be shaking in their boots. Or as Susan Collins liked to say, they should be concerned or troubled. Maine voters deserve better than a senator who refuses to stand up for what is right. They deserve better than Susan Collins. So please join the fight to flip the Senate and defeat Susan Collins by visiting defeatcollins.com and sign up to volunteer at maindems.org/volunteer. This pandemic has plunged our nation into crisis. And in times like these, it's so important that we stand together as a united Democratic Party. I am so proud to be your chair. I'm so proud of the work we've done together. And I can't wait to see all we accomplish in the coming months. Remember, our unity is our greatest strength and Donald Trump's worst nightmare. Let's win this election together. Thank you for all of your work. Have a wonderful convention. You have a wonderful chair. You have a wonderful group of folks that are going to help us take back our nation. Have a great convention.
Up next, in 2016, she was the second African-American woman in history to be elected to the United States Senate. As a U.S. Senator, she has been a key voice in the fight to hold the Trump administration accountable. And this year, she was a candidate in the Democratic presidential primary. Please welcome Senator Kamala Harris.
Hello, Maine Democrats. Okay, hey, this is the most important election of our lifetime. And justice is on the ballot in 2020. When 1 in 5 mothers is describing her children under the age of 12 as being hungry, we know justice is on the ballot for our children. When we look at the fact that our frontline workers are out there exposing themselves to harm, but doing what they believe is right to save and support their communities, but they don't have the PPEs, we know justice is on the ballot for our frontline workers. When we look at the fact that over 40 million people have lost their jobs in just the last 100 days, and most of them don't have paid sick leave, paid family leave, affordable childcare, justice for our families is on the ballot in 2020. And you've shown what can be done, Maine. You did it in 2018. So let's do it again in 2020. There's so much on the line, but I know we can win, and we're going to win with you.
Up next, he served as the chair of the Democratic National Committee. He was a candidate in the 2004 Democratic presidential primary and served as the governor of Vermont. Please welcome Governor Howard Dean.
Hello, all you Mainers. It's Howard Dean here from Vermont. And thanks for all the hard work you're doing. This really is a critical election. Everybody always says this, but this really is, as Joe Biden says, a battle for the soul of the United States of America. We have the most corrupt president in the history of the United States, and you have a chance to change that. You have a chance also to give us back the Senate so that we can put decent people on the Supreme Court, people who are not supported by billionaires who are giving dark money through the Federalist Society. Susan Collins is a great representative of Donald Trump, and she's a great representative of Mitch McConnell, but she sure doesn't seem to do much for the people of Maine. She's great at talking, but she always reliably delivers 94% of the time with Donald Trump. We can do better than that for a United States senator, and you're the ones that are going to have to go out and do something about it. Organization is hard work. We're not just going to have speeches and we're not going to just denounce people. We're going to go out and knock on every single door. And thanks to the fact that you now have instant runoff voting, you're going to have a fairer election. You're going to have an election where everybody's represented, where nobody's going to win with 46% of the vote. You're going to have a majority. You did that in Maine. You're one of the most progressive states in the country. You've got a great progressive governor, a great legislature. Now go out and make sure you have a great senator. You've got one, you need two. This is an incredibly important race. If we don't beat Susan Collins, we're not going to take back the Senate, and we're going to have more corruption on the court, more corruption in the White House. We have got to do better than this. You're the ones that can deliver it. Please deliver it. Keep up the great work, and thank you very, very much.
Our next featured guest has dedicated her career to rebuilding the middle class. After the economy crashed in 2008, she fought to create the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to protect people from getting scammed by big banks and corporations. In 2012, she was elected to the United States Senate to represent Massachusetts and re-elected in 2018. This year, she ran for president on the idea of big structural change to undo a rigged system propping up the rich and powerful at the expense of everyone else. Please join me in welcoming Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Hello, Maine Democrats. I know we can't be together in person today, but I wanted to send a word of encouragement to some of the hardest working Democrats in the entire country. Now, I'll get straight to the point. This is a time of tremendous crisis for our nation and for the world. Unemployment is approaching Depression-era levels. Over 1 million people have been infected with coronavirus and tens of thousands have died. People of color are being infected and dying at disproportionate rates, and there is no clear end in sight for the need for social distancing. Donald Trump's response to this coronavirus outbreak has been cruel, reckless, and incompetent. The crisis has made it abundantly clear who Trump's economy and Trump's government was built to serve: the wealthy and the well-connected instead of working families. So now, more than ever, we need steady, principled leadership to keep our families safe, to restore our economy, and to preserve our democracy. And that is why I am fighting every single day to make sure that Joe Biden becomes the next president of the United States. Joe has spent nearly his entire life in public service, and he knows that a government run with integrity and competence and heart will save lives and save livelihoods. So, Democrats, we have a job to do this November. Beat Donald Trump and send Joe Biden to the White House. But we have to remember, beating Donald Trump is not enough. The coronavirus outbreak has laid bare the deep inequities that persist in America. A healthcare system unfit to keep all Americans healthy, an economy that protects the wealthy but leaves essential workers vulnerable, an electoral system in desperate need of repair. If we're going to weather this unprecedented crisis and create a more equal and just America, then we need to elect Democrats up and down the ballot this November. None of this will be possible if we don't protect our elections. Elections are the beating heart of our democracy. If Americans are forced to choose between voting or staying safe from the virus, democracy as we know it will be lost. So here are 4 steps I'm fighting for right now to make it easier for Americans to vote during this pandemic. Step 1, Every American should be able to register to vote safely and easily. And that means no more voter purges for the duration of this pandemic, and requiring all states to offer online registration. Step 2, keep voters healthy by making the process of casting a ballot both easier and more accessible. That means giving everyone the option to vote by mail, offering 30 days of early voting, and extending polling hours. Step 3, fight disinformation and increase election security. And step 4, give states the resources they need to administer the vote and to keep poll workers safe. The task of protecting our democracy has never been more vital. And at a time when life as we know it has been turned upside down, we need every Democrat to come off the sidelines and fight for a government that works for everyone. Lives are on the line. We face an uphill battle, but I am confident that if we stand together, if we fight together, if we persist together, we will make it through this time of crisis. So, Democrats, let's get to work.
Over the course of this afternoon, we will be honoring 3 extraordinary Maine Democrats for their commitment to the party and to the state. Joining us now to present the Sam Shapiro Award is Chair Kathleen Mara.
This year's Sam Shapiro Award goes to Wayne Kinney. In politics and policymaking, it is often qualities of loyalty and dedication, coupled with a steadfast sense of character and humor, that make all the difference. Dedicated in recognition to former Maine State Treasurer Samuel Shapiro, this award is presented biennially to a Democrat whose loyalty, dedication, and ebullience lifts up our people and plays an important part in the success of our party. Wayne did the vast majority of the work to pull together the Affirmative Action Committee, develop our delegate selection plan, and he helped prepare Democrats in more than 60 communities to understand the caucus and convention system and to run for national delegate. Wayne is an invaluable resource to the party, the state, and to me as the MDP parliamentarian. Wayne never waits to be asked. His hand is always the first to be raised, and Maine is a better place because he is here.
Hi, thanks for this award. As it turns out, the Maine Democratic Party offers opportunities to be educated. The word ebullience is in the description of the Sam Shapiro Award. I had to look it up. It's the first time I've ever used it in a sentence, but it's a really nice word. It reminded me of another Democratic convention several years ago. A friend had just up and described me as radiating sweetness and light. Another friend had just taken a swig of coffee and it went everywhere. I've never met Sam Shapiro, but from what I heard, he's an awfully good person who set a great example for all of us, and I will keep trying. Kathleen and other MDP leaders, staff, volunteers are pragmatic, progressive, and work hard every day to make Mainers' lives better. I'm lucky to be able to work with them. Again, thank you very much for this award.
Up next, he served as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives from Massachusetts for more than 30 years and is best known as a leading co-sponsor on major legislation reforming the U.S. financial industry. Please welcome former Congressman Barney Frank.
This is a great time to be voting in Maine, especially if you are one of the many people who understand how important it is that we change the direction of this country. Maine will have a major voice in deciding who runs the United States Senate for the next 2 years. If you're frustrated by Mitch McConnell's having violated the Constitution by refusing to allow a presidential nominee to the Supreme Court to get any consideration, you can vote for the Democratic senator, who I guarantee you, unlike Susan Collins, will not be voting to make Mitch McConnell the majority leader. You can vote to re-elect Jared Golden if you live in that half of the state and keep that important Democratic majority in control in the House. They have already done so much, and if you have a Democratic President, House, and Senate, you will see an enormous improvement in every aspect of our collective life. And finally, Maine can undo the mistake that was made last time when one electoral vote went to Donald Trump. The chance to be decisive in turning things around in all three branches of our government, House, Senate, and President, is absolutely important. You know, I used to live in Massachusetts, and I think I'm very happy that I've now become a Maine voter for a number of reasons. One is that the vote that I will cast in Maine, the votes I will cast in Maine, will make a very real difference, more than in almost any other state.
We would like to thank session sponsor Pierce Atwood. Pierce Atwood's Government Relations Practice Group is pleased to congratulate the Maine Democratic Party on convening your Rise and Organize rally virtually. You overcame the COVID-19 barriers so that you can promote your platform and candidates, even in these challenging times. While nothing beats face-to-face communication, we applaud you for finding a way to conduct your business while following the COVID-19 health protocols. Thank you.
I first ran for the House in 2012. Heading into that election, House Democrats had lost the majority, Paul LePage was governor, and Republicans controlled all of state government. The outlook was bleak. But we recruited amazing candidates in all 151 House districts, and in 2012, we took back the House, and we've kept it ever since. In 2018, we expanded the Democratic majority to 33 seats, and for the first time, the House Democratic Caucus is now 55% women, and women in the House now chair 50% of the legislative committees. That success is due to the incredible people we had step up in their communities to run for office.
Hi, my name is Kevin O'Connell. I represent the city of Brewer in the Maine House Democratic Party. I've served as past mayor of Brewer. I was in the Air National Guard for 24 years. I've been a lineman for 33 years. And I decided to run for the House because there's never been a more important time to stand up for your neighbors, your friends, and your family. I am very proud to be a Democrat in the Maine House.
I feel so lucky to live here and honored to represent the people of Ellsworth and Trenton and try to improve the quality of life in our communities.
Hi, my name is Scott Cuddy from Winterport, and I represent House District 98 in the Maine Legislature. I ran because I wanted to help working Mainers get more out of their lives. And right now, those Mainers are going through some of the hardest times of their lives. That makes it a hard time to serve, but that is why I know it's important to do it right now. It may sound trite, but it is both an honor and a privilege to represent the people of House District 98.
I ran for office so I could serve the people of Arundel, Dayton, and Lyman. It is an honor and a privilege to wake up each morning and get to do what I do. I can't imagine a more important time than right now to serve the people of Maine. And apart from grandparenting, this is the greatest job in the world.
Of course, success isn't just about winning elections. It's about making real change in people's lives.
My name is Lois Record, and representing South Portland, where I've lived for almost 50 years, is really exciting. It really matters to me that men and women are treated equally in this state, and it's the reason that I've put forward a piece that would put that statement, that simple statement, into the Constitution of Maine.
One of the greatest honors for me in serving in the legislature is having the opportunity to represent my hometown of Biddeford. Of course, beyond serving in the legislature, I think one of the greatest takeaways I would have is that hard work pays off. A good example of this is the bill that I sponsored to ban so-called conversion therapy. We got the bill passed, and we sent it to Governor Mills's desk, and she signed it into law. And it was moments like these, this past legislative session, being surrounded by my colleagues, having the opportunity to see hard work finally pay off, and see that our democratic values were becoming law here in the state of Maine. That's why I love serving. That's why I love serving with this democratic family. And I'm looking forward to continuing the hard work that we have before us to continue to do good work on behalf of Maine people.
Along with Governor Mills and our colleagues in the Senate, House Democrats have fought for and won significant progress on so many of the issues that matter to us most. Issues like championing criminal and juvenile justice reform and making sure Mainers have access to affordable housing, fighting for quality public education for our kids, and reducing the burden of student debt, expanding access to affordable and quality health care, passing pay equality for women and paid time off for workers, honoring our veterans and enacting automatic voter registration, welcoming new Mainers into our communities and into our workforce, expanding access to broadband, fighting for clean and renewable energy, and finally, making government functional again. There's no question that we are in unprecedented times, and we are so lucky to have these dedicated and passionate public servants working and fighting for us, people who will rise up to the moment that we're in.
When the legislature adjourned in mid-March, I wondered about our homebound seniors, about our medically vulnerable. And as we began to distance ourselves from one another, I wondered how they would meet their essential needs for food, for medicine, and for human connection. I created a Facebook group. I named it Elliott Strong, and I invited a few friends. Our efforts have gone even beyond picking up groceries and calling to check in on one another. We've had birthday celebrations where kids would stand at the end of their driveway, and hundreds of cars have filed by singing and honking their horns. It's really heartwarming. I'm really hopeful that this sense of community that we're building extends far beyond this time that we're living through, and that we always know we're here for one another.
House Democrats are extraordinary. They come from every background, every profession, and every corner of the state. They make remarkable sacrifices to serve and to make progress for the people of Maine. And the thing is, they're just getting started. Maine Democrats, we must protect this House. To join us, go to MaineHouseDemocrats.com. Now enjoy the convention and let's bring home big wins in November.
Hi everyone, my name is Lisa and I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Dems. Just like you, I've been following social distancing measures and staying at home to protect my friends, family, and neighbors. But I have something to confess to you. When it's nice out, like it often is this time of year, I want to get out and talk to people. And being who I am, I want to talk to people about politics. In fact, when I got started here at the Maine Dems, I was a field organizer. And I actually really miss going out and knocking on doors. Now, not everybody loves canvassing as much as I do, but knocking on doors is important because it helps us identify supporters and make sure that they become committed voters. And when it's time to get people to the polls on Election Day, we know exactly who to remind. Well, we can't knock on doors right now, but we still need to connect with voters to make sure they have a plan to vote in the July 14th primary and on November 3rd. That's why we launched our digital Commit to Vote card. And it's really, really simple. All you have to do is go to maindems.org/commit and tell us you're planning to vote. Then, after you commit to vote, the card gives you a chance to tell us how you feel about candidates running in your area. And it gives you a chance to request an absentee ballot so that you can vote from the safety of your own home in the July 14th primary. Now, in order to make up for canceled in-person door knocking, we need to get our Commit to Vote card distributed as widely as we possibly can. And real grassroots support is how we win, and that starts with you. So, can we count on you to multiply your impact and ask 5 friends to commit to vote this week? A reminder to vote is especially powerful when it comes from a friend. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening.
Up next, this video message from the Maine State Senate Democrats.
You know, all across the state, families sit around the kitchen table each night trying to figure out how to stretch their budget to make ends meet and afford health care. I know this because I hear it from Mainers every single day. But most of all, because I've watched my friends and family members go through it also.
Access to affordable quality health care is one of the biggest drivers of whether you can get to work, something that in the blink of the eye can change your entire life or allow you to live life to the fullest.
This year, we're tackling the greed in the healthcare industry by making sure our healthcare system works for everyone in Maine. Our Patients First healthcare package gives Mainers an advocate on their side when they go up against big insurance companies.
It's about creating a medical billing system that works for us as patients.
And it protects Mainers from spending their life savings on life-saving medication.
These changes are long overdue. We don't buy groceries, a house, or a car without an idea
of what it would cost at least. Why should it be any different with medical care? For most working families and seniors, all it takes is one large medical bill to threaten their finances.
On behalf of the thousands of Mainers who face the complex web of our current system, we stand here today pledging to do our part and continue our work to change it.
This is what we get elected for. This is what we serve in this building for. And this is how we're going to deliver for Mainers. As a physician, I took an oath to put my patients first. It's time our healthcare system did the same.
We would like to recognize session sponsor, the Maine Credit Union League. The Maine Credit Union League is a nonprofit professional trade association that serves and supports Maine's 55 credit unions. Founded in 1938, the League helps credit unions succeed and improve the financial lives of their members. Advocacy at both the state and federal levels on behalf of Maine's credit unions is a key component of the League's mission. The League is pleased to support the Maine Democratic Party's 2020 Rise and Organize rally.
Serving his first term, with priorities including protecting the earned benefits of Maine public workers and educators and completing bond sales and public-private partnerships for the common good of all Maine people, please welcome the Honorable Henry Beck, Maine's State Treasurer.
Being trusted to serve as State Treasurer has been an honor, especially during this extraordinary time. Whether it's working with Speaker Sarah Gideon to deliver $30 million in direct property tax relief, or implementing Senator Nate Libby's bill to protect the health insurance of retired firefighters, working with Governor Mills to finally release the senior housing bonds, or standing up for diversity in the corporate boardroom, having Democrats in office matters. As your State Treasurer, I work every day to keep our finances strong and put middle-class Mainers front and center. There's no question the pandemic has affected people and businesses across our state. People are worried about paying their bills, keeping the doors to their businesses open, and keeping their families safe. The magnitude of this challenge is why it's so important that we keep our majorities in the State House and State Senate, that we re-elect Chellie Pingree and Jared Golden, and finally send a Democrat to the U.S. Senate. There will need to be more economic relief in the aftermath of this crisis, and more work to do to level the playing field for all Mainers. As Democrats, we know that when we come together with compassion and vision, we can create real results to improve people's lives and chart a secure economic future for Maine.
And now, back to present the Vivian Powell Award. Please welcome Maine Democratic Party Chair Kathleen Mara.
This year's Vivian Powell Award goes to Tom McLean. Conferred in memory of the late Vivian Powell, this award is passed on to a volunteer whose commitment to the grassroots, in the trenches efforts of the party makes a significant contribution to the life of our political process and through it the success of our state. Tom has been chair of the Democrats of the Kennebunks and Arundel for many years. In that role, and as a concerned citizen, Tom leads all of us and teaches all of us every day as he tirelessly leads the charge, takes on Democratic tasks large and small, supports countless candidates financially, as an advisor, a driver, and a campaigner. He leads the Kennebunk Committee and board meetings with a carefully crafted agenda and a thoughtful, inclusive approach. Tom exemplifies loyalty, dedication, lifting people up, and the success of our party. Tom leads with humility and works to make sure he trains and gives credit to all in his orbit. He and Penny are truly role models.
It is an honor to be nominated and receive the Vivian Powell Award for work at the local level. And I want to thank those that nominated me for this award. For the past 6-7 years, I have been the chair of the Democrats of the Kennebunks and Arundel. We have a great group of motivated and talented individuals that I have been fortunate to direct and work with as we've undertaken many exciting activities. As I look back, I see a number of things that I'm proud of. One, we've flipped 2 state local representative seats from red to blue. The voter enrollment in Kennebunk now is greater than either the Republicans or independents. We have a regular newsletter that goes out to approximately 600 members. And we had enough interest and financial support to have an office for the past year and a half going into 2020. As I said, there are many talented individuals, but in particular, I'd like to thank my executive committee that I've worked with over the past years. These include Penelope Gruen, Connie Dykstra, Dan Sayer, Claudia Sayer, Leslie Cargill, Amy Larkin, Sean Donnelly, and Sue Ellen Goodman. Working in the trenches is what it's all about, and I hope that others will continue on in this spirit. Thank you.
Next up, please welcome the Maine Democratic Party's organizing director, Maria Woodbury.
Hi, I'm Maria, and I'm the organizing director here at the Maine Dems. Joining me are Isa, Andy, Megan, Miles, and Noah, some of our organizing team. We're working every single day to make sure that Democrats win in November because
Maine is a key battleground state in 2020. The primary election is on July 14th, and the general election is on November 3rd.
We need to beat Donald Trump and elect Joe Biden, defeat Susan Collins and flip the Senate, and hold on to our majority in the House.
And that's why it's key that we talk with Maine voters right now about the issues that are important to them.
So we are planning for a week of action starting on June 8th. You can sign up at maindems.org/volunteer.
And this is the perfect time to get involved, no matter if you've been volunteering for months or if you've never made phone calls before.
So show up for what you believe in and visit maindems.org/volunteer to sign up right now for our June 8th week of action.
Up next, Maine Democratic Party Chair Kathleen Mara to introduce the proposed 2020 Maine Democratic Party platform.
This year, we are doing something different with our platform. Rather than writing a lengthy list of prescriptive policies that we believe all Democrats should support, the Platform Committee vigorously debated the values we believe all Democrats should hold dear. The proposed platform we're about to share is not yet ratified, but on June 7th, the Democratic State Committee will be voting on the process by which we can debate and ratify the platform and party charter. According to the timeline that will be laid out on June 7th, state convention delegates will vote to ratify the platform and proposed amendments later in June. We want to extend our special thanks to the Platform Committee for putting together this bold new vision for the future. Without further ado, here is the proposed 2020 Maine Democratic Party platform.
We, the Maine Democrats, are the party of the people. All people.
We are individuals of every race, age, ethnicity, ability, sexual orientation, gender, and gender identity. This diversity is our strength. We treasure our American democracy and hold the following values to be self-evident for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We believe that food, housing, healthcare, education, and reproductive freedom are basic human rights. Protecting and advancing these inalienable rights allows us to fully realize our potential as individuals, as a state, and as a nation.
We believe healthcare should be universally affordable and accessible. Every person has a right to receive comprehensive physical and mental health services when they need them.
We believe in economic, racial, and social justice to ensure that everyone is free from discrimination and feels welcome, valued, and invited to contribute to society. We stand with all those who face discrimination and assert that these rights are guaranteed for all.
We believe government must protect individual rights to privacy, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, and equal justice before the law as guaranteed by the Maine and U.S. constitutions.
We believe in a government that is ethical, transparent, accountable to the people, and open to the press. The protection of voting rights and free and fair elections is vital so that all people may participate in our democratic process. People have a right to a strong voice in the political process, undiluted by money and corporate influence.
We believe Maine's natural resources are among our most important assets, and conserving and protecting them is vital to our economic sustainability, quality of life, and the well-being of future generations.
We believe future generations should inherit a livable planet. Climate change is a clear and present threat, which requires immediate action informed by science and awareness of its impact on social and economic justice.
We believe in building a diversified and economically sustainable economy for Maine. In all Maine communities, both rural and urban, people should benefit from innovation, emerging technologies, and new business opportunities.
We believe large imbalances in income and wealth threaten the fabric of our society. We support fairly rewarding the work of all people, maintaining a strong safety net, and taxing progressively.
We believe that every individual has the right to equal pay for equal work, a living wage, a safe workplace, and to be free from discrimination and harassment. We assert the right to associate and bargain collectively.
We believe in investing in students, educators, and in public education from early childhood through lifelong learning to guarantee everyone the opportunity to learn, grow, and contribute to our communities.
We believe in preserving our outdoor heritage and in maintaining responsible and accountable gun ownership while protecting the safety of all Maine people.
We believe that veterans deserve our respect. We must fulfill our obligation to provide them and their families support services they need and have earned.
We believe we must honor and uphold our sacred obligation to the Native Americans who first inhabited this land, and that the sovereignty and self-determination of all indigenous tribes in Maine should be recognized and respected.
We believe in honoring the immigrant heritage of our nation by welcoming new Mainers and by establishing sensible immigration law that protects the rights of asylum seekers and provides a path to citizenship from immigrants who make Maine their home. We believe Maine is part of the global economic community, and we support international participation that honor workers' rights, fair trade, and the environment. We believe in international conduct based on diplomacy and mutual respect that enhances security, makes peace a priority, and limits military action throughout the world. This is our present. This is our future.
We are the Maine Democratic Party.
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 First elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 2008, she has found a way to get things done whether or not Democrats controlled Congress. She sits on the powerful Appropriations Committee, where she has fought to expand opportunities for working families, protect our veterans, and expand access to health care. She also sits on the Agricultural Committee and is a recognized national leader on food and agricultural policy. Please welcome Maine's 1st District Representative, Congresswoman Chellie Pingree.
Frustration around waiting for this money. Our fishermen have no idea what the season's going to be like this year for lobster fishing. They've already experienced some challenges.
We've had a long time to fix this problem, and unfortunately, because of a lot of bad politics, because of the pressure from the fossil fuel industry, we are losing time fast. And the only way you can deal with that is to keep carbon from ending up in the ocean, which means less use of fossil fuels.
You are held hostage by the pharmaceutical companies, and this drug is increasingly becoming unaffordable.
I thought it was a very political ad, and I would say Attorney General Barr needs to decide if he's the Attorney General of the United States or the president's lawyer.
Our phones have been ringing off the hooks. They're not supposed to be held for detention. Their children are not supposed to be taken away from them. They're not supposed to be detained indefinitely.
We've just come out of this ICE detention center. We had the opportunity to speak with maybe a dozen mothers, and it was everything horrible that we expected. We're elected to tackle these tough issues. Our job is to handle difficult problems, to answer the tough questions. Look, we get paid to represent the American public. We're paid to do really difficult jobs. We're not just supposed to sit back and, read the polling numbers and decide what's difficult and say we're not going to do it. Hi, I'm Congresswoman Chellie Pingree. I'm so sorry we can't gather together for the normal Democratic convention we used to have, but we've all learned to communicate in a variety of different ways, so I'm glad we have this opportunity today. This is the most important election of our lifetime, and we have all said that so many times, but this is. Who could have imagined we would have the worst possible president at the worst time in our country? This has laid bare so many of the injustices and wrongs about our country, and we need an entirely new administration and Democrats in the House and the Senate and the Maine state legislature to make sure that we can move forward on the changes that are so important. We have to do something about the economic injustices in this country, making sure that everybody has access to affordable health care and it's not attached to their employment so that they have universal access whenever they need it. Fixing our food system. How can it be that in our country farmers are plowing under vegetables or dumping milk and we have lines of people going hungry? We have so much work to do going into the future. I am hoping when we come out on the other side, the American people will thoroughly understand the importance of a good, strong government that knows what it's doing, to believe in science and data, and when somebody tells you something bad is coming, you got to do something about it, that we will. Climate change is right around the corner, and that will be our next big challenge. And I am dedicated, like so many of my colleagues, to making sure that we plan for that future, that we fix the essential problems in our country so that going forward, we're all going to be safe. So to all of you, be safe, be healthy, take care of your families. I hope you're well. We're going to get through this.
Former Speaker of the House Mike Saxel and the team at Main Street Solutions salute our pro bono client Good Shepherd Food Bank and our client Full Plates, Full Potential for their tireless work to provide nutritious food for school children and all Mainers in need during this difficult time. We are proud to support them because nothing is more important than keeping bellies full and futures strong. Bumper Active Custom Stickers and Tees is the union-organized printing and fulfillment shop that is proud to administer the official online store of the Maine Democratic Party. We are a turnkey, print-on-demand solution for progressive causes, candidates, and organizations. We'll build your web store to your specifications, print your gear, ship it to your supporters, and manage all of the customer service contacts. And since we're a print-on-demand shop, there's no upfront inventory purchase required. Even though we're based way down in Austin, Texas, we know that while Susan Collins is often disappointed, she's always disappointing. We're here to do whatever we can to help Pine Tree State progressives send a Democrat to the Senate this November and help take back the upper house. We love the Maine Dems.
Elected to the U.S. House of Representatives 2 years ago in one of the toughest races in the entire country, he has been a fierce advocate for Maine's working people in the halls of Congress. As a congressman, he is working to expand access to affordable health care, fight corruption and dark money in politics, and strengthen labor unions. Please welcome Maine's 2nd Congressional District Representatives, Congressman Jared Golden.
2 years ago, I stood on a stage and asked you to fight with me, to tell Wall Street and the big money corporate establishment that Maine's 2nd District doesn't belong to them. It belongs to us. I shared with you my belief that if we stood together, all the money and power in the world couldn't hold us back. After Washington Republicans voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act and take health care away from millions of Americans, you joined voters across the country to throw them out of power. In the process, we made history in the 2nd District by defeating a sitting incumbent for the first time in more than a century. Since then, I've never forgotten a promise I made to you those 2 years ago, that when the powerful and the special interests came knocking, your representative would have your back. So while the extremist attacks on our health care never cease, I've defended the ACA, taken on Big Pharma, and fought to cap out-of-pocket Medicare costs for seniors. While my predecessor and his establishment allies put corporate donors first, I joined more than 60 reform-minded Democrats to reject corporate PAC money. Together, we passed the largest anti-corruption and campaign finance reform bill since Watergate. And while the big banks and corporate lobbyists spend billions to rig the game in their favor, I'm fighting for the Mainers who work hard just to keep up with the bills. Small business owners, firefighters and teachers, loggers and nurses, shipbuilders and steelworkers. So when most of Congress looked the other way and declared President Trump's new trade deal a victory for America, I called it what it is, NAFTA with a fancy new name. I shot down congressional pay raises and supported a raise for women by voting for equal pay for equal work. And for the first time in history, I helped pass protections against LGBTQ discrimination through the House of Representatives. I've gone up against special interests who want to drive lobstermen out of business, had the backs of my fellow veterans, and stood in solidarity with my union brothers and sisters. I've stood up to Democratic leaders, Republican leaders, and to President Trump. That's a promise I made you, to have your back no matter what. And you've had my back too. I'll always be grateful to the thousands of you who gave me the opportunity to serve Mainers in Washington, and to the people who powered our historic victory, knocking doors, making calls, getting out the vote, and so much more. Since our historic win in 2018, we've built a line of defense against corruption, corporate greed, and attacks on our health care. Now in 2020, it's time to retake the offensive, because whether it's a woman's right to make her own health care choices, collective bargaining rights, or the promise of Medicare and Social Security, if you give the big money establishment an inch, they'll take a mile. Brothers and sisters, we're living through times more difficult than we've ever known. A dangerous new disease has taken the lives of tens of thousands of our friends, family members and neighbors, and claimed the livelihoods of tens of millions more. And we still face attacks on our health care, on women's rights and equality, and on our very democracy. We need principled leaders who will work together and do what's necessary to beat back corruption and solve the greatest challenges of our lives. The job ahead of us is large. The opposition from the powerful and the big money special interests will be fierce, but I stand by the promise I made you 2 years ago. If we stand together, nothing and no one can hold us back.
We would like to thank our session sponsor, Drummond Woodsum. Drummond Woodsum's government relations and campaigns professionals provide advice and representation that dramatically affect both public opinion and public policy. Our team comprises bipartisan professionals who have been active and influential at all levels of government. We are proud to congratulate the Maine Dems on their Rise and Organize rally.
Serving his 4th consecutive and 7th overall term in office, his priorities cover everything from conducting state elections, to testing motor vehicles, to safeguarding the original Maine state constitution and preserving millions of precious historic documents. Please welcome the Honorable Matthew Dunlap, Maine's Secretary of State.
Hello, Maine Democrats. I'm Matt Dunlap. I live in Old Town, and for 7 terms, I've served as Maine's Secretary of State. Prior to that, I served 4 terms in the Maine House of Representatives, representing Old Town and the Indian Island voting district. In the time that I've been in both the legislature and served as Secretary of State, we've worked on some pretty big things. Things like the lifetime hunting and fishing license, also ranked choice voting, the Military and Overseas Voter Empowerment Act, the Help America Vote Act, a whole host of things that we've been able to do to make Maine a stronger and better place to live. Of course, we could never have done any of it without you. Anybody running for office, or anybody that's served in office, has to get there. They have to get the most votes. They have to get elected. They have to get the message out. And it requires the incredible commitment of people not only volunteering and canvassing and making phone calls, but people actually going out and voting for a better future. And that's where you've always come in and you've always shown up. I and everyone who has run for office and is running for office, thank you for that support. Of course, nothing I do alone. We have the incredible support of the Maine legislature with Democratic majorities under the leadership of Senate President Troy Jackson and House Speaker Sarah Gideon to make sure that we can get that agenda moved forward. And of course, in this very dangerous time, who better to lead us than our Governor Janet Mills through this time of global pandemic. In our own party, we're very lucky to have the leadership of Kathleen Mara and Eric Gunderson as vice chair of the party. With them and their help, and the help of our county chairs, our county committees, and our local committees, we shape an agenda for a brighter future. Nothing we do, we can do alone. We are always stronger together. In my first term in the legislature, we talked about what made us strong. And what made us strong was putting people first. We continue to do that. And this coming election cycle, I and my colleagues in the Division of Elections and the Department of the Secretary of State are committed to making sure that every American citizen living in Maine can cast a ballot and do so without any impediment and without fear. Of course, we've had to make a few changes, and we'll make some more probably, and we'll do that in partnership with our town clerks and with our governor. The bottom line is that democracy works, and it works best when we all participate. And we could not participate and have the success that we have had without you. And I'm hopeful, going into November, that we'll elect a Democratic president, increase our majorities in Congress, create a new Democratic majority in the United States Senate, and of course, our majorities in the Senate in Maine and in the House of Representatives as well. So get out there, talk to your neighbors, and remember, there are a lot of us in the front of the pack who are rooting for you out in the field, making sure that our neighbors exercise their most important of their constitutional rights, their right to vote. Thank you so much, and continue the fight for the very important democratic causes that we all support.
Here is a message from one of our sponsors, Paul McCarrier at One Mill in Belfast. I personally want to thank all our frontline workers and the working people of Maine who have continued to provide essential services for all of us. From this cannabis caregiver's heart and soul, thank you. And thank you, Paul, for helping to support the Maine Dems. Whether it's a picture, a story, an idea, or a campaign narrative, we know that the right frame makes all the difference. That's why Frame's strategic and creative team has worked for nearly 2 decades, making political media, branded content, and independent feature films with a distinctive point of view. We've helped pass historic legislation, shaped public opinion, and won campaigns that have improved the lives of real people. For us at Frame, that's what it's all about. It's your story. We'd love to tell it.
Up next, he served as President Barack Obama's head speechwriter from 2005 to 2013. In 2017, he co-founded a media company and is the co-host of the popular podcast, Pod Save America. Please welcome Jon Favreau.
Hi everyone, I'm Jon Favreau. I host a podcast called Pod Save America, and I used to write speeches for the last real president we had, Barack Obama. I love Maine. I vacationed there as a kid. I got married there almost 3 years ago. My in-laws are there right now. I wish I could be there with them, but I'm stuck at home doing another virtual event, just like all of you. And the reason we're all stuck at home is the same reason we're all here. Because we are living through the nightmare scenario that so many of us worried about in 2016. What if Donald Trump becomes president and the country is threatened by a real crisis? And what if none of the Republicans in Washington are willing to stand up to him? Ever. So now we're here. And they have no plan. No plan to stop the virus. No plan to reopen safely. No plan to help people who can't afford to get sick or lose their job. They have only one plan. And that plan is to do whatever it takes to win the election. Donald Trump is a wounded animal. And he and the Republicans are about to run the ugliest campaign that any of us have ever seen. It's not great. But here's the thing. We can win. And we need to start saying that to ourselves over the next couple of months, over and over. We can win. We can beat Donald Trump. We can beat Susan Collins. We can take back the White House, and we can take back the Senate. We can win. Of course, we all want to know how. How do our candidates win? Does the campaign have the right message? Who's up in the polls? These are all fine questions, and we'll be spending a lot of time talking about them on the pod. But they're pundit questions. And we need to be asking organizer questions. What can I do? How can I help? Who can I persuade to turn out and vote for Democrats up and down the ticket? If we want to actually beat Donald Trump and Susan Collins and all the rest of them, we have to remember that the outcome of this election is just as much on us as it is on our Democratic candidates and their campaigns. The responsibility for winning this thing is ours too. We have the ability to affect the outcome through phone calls and online organizing and sharing content and donating money and registering new voters. We can't control the virus, we can't control the economy, and we can't control what Donald Trump does. But we can control what we do. We can control how hard we work, and we can control how hard we fight. And that's how we win. There are plenty of pundits out there. This is a time for organizers. And if you want to help, go to maindems.org or votesaveamerica.com and let's do this. Thanks, guys.
Up next, he is a city councilor at large for the city of Portland. Please welcome Councilman Pius Ali.
My name is Pius Ali and I'm Portland City Councilor. Maine is not my home by birth, but it is my choosing home. Maine is more than just a beautiful place to live. More than anything, Maine is its people. People who are kind, friendly, open-minded, and open-hearted. Maine's people hold strong values of welcoming, accepting, and celebrating each other. And we work to live into those values more and more. Mainers are creative, industrious, curious, and compassionate. And we know that loving our state doesn't mean that there isn't room for improvement. By being civically engaged, we have the power to lift up the place and the people that we love. It starts with voting, but it doesn't stop there. The PTA, the neighborhood association, the school board, the city council, the state legislature, there are countless ways to participate in the decision making that affect our communities, our families, our youth. If you love Maine, the best way to live into that love is to get engaged, to vote.
Back to present the John Walker Memorial Award, please welcome Maine Democratic Party Chair Kathleen Mara.
This year's John Walker Memorial Award goes to Patricia Washburn. Throughout his life, John Walker represented the highest ideals, principles, and precepts of our party and this country. His consistent efforts towards finding common solutions to common problems and improving the lives of Maine people has united groups of individuals who, absent John's vision, would be otherwise disparate. The Maine Democratic Party is proud to present the John Walker Award in recognition of an individual whose vision and dedication leaves a significant mark on his or her fellow citizens and the state as a whole. Patricia Washburn never says no. She's an ardent advocate for people with disabilities, an active member of the MDP's Affirmative Action Committee, and the author of the book, Self-Care for Cats. Pat cheerfully takes on any task we ask of her, and we ask her often. Pat can be seen zipping around the streets of Portland with her red hair flying in the breeze, showing all of us what a life well lived looks like.
Okay, nobody is around. I'm going to take my mask off just long enough to say, thank you, Maine Democrats. I really appreciate the recognition. The work I do is for the vulnerable people of Maine, including people like myself with disabilities. I am really looking forward to being part of the party that unseats Susan Collins, that unseats Donald Trump, and I am really looking forward to going out there and voting. And now, I'm going to be safe again.
Hey, listen, are you a Democratic woman who wants to run for office? Let us help you. Emerge Maine is changing the face of politics by recruiting, training, and providing a powerful network for Democratic women who want to run for office. Emerge Maine is the state's only premier training program for Democratic women. We have one goal: to increase the number of Democratic women leaders from diverse backgrounds in public office through recruitment, training, and providing a powerful network. We offer the only in-depth 6-month, 70-hour training program that provides aspiring female leaders with cutting-edge tools and training to run for elected office and elevate themselves in our political system. Emerge has trained over 300 Democratic women here in Maine and have hundreds of supporters in our network. Find out more about the Emerge Maine program, nominate a woman you think would be great for our public office, or see our list of Emerge-trained candidates running in 2020 by visiting emergemaine.org.
And now, she was the executive director of the Frances Perkins Center in Damariscotta and currently serves as commissioner of the Maine Department of Labor. Please welcome Commissioner Laura Fortman.
Hello, Maine Democrats. My name is Laura Fortman, and I have the honor of serving as Labor Commissioner in the Mills administration, a role I also filled for the Baldacci administration. I've also had the unique privilege of serving as the Executive Director of the Frances Perkins Center in Damariscotta, Maine. The Frances Perkins Center honors the legacy of Perkins by sharing her commitment to the principle that the government should provide all of its people the best possible life. In February 1933, President-elect Roosevelt asked Perkins to serve in his cabinet as Secretary of Labor. She outlined a series of groundbreaking policies that she would be pursuing, including a 40-hour work week, the minimum wage, eliminating child labor, creating an unemployment insurance program, as well as Social Security and universal health care. Roosevelt agreed, and Perkins became the first woman in the nation to serve in a presidential cabinet. She died on May 14th, 1965, at the age of 85, and she's buried alongside her husband, Paul Wilson, in the Glidden Cemetery on the River Road in Newcastle, Maine, a short distance from the Brick House, a place she always considered her home. I hope you enjoy this brief glimpse into the life of an amazing woman and a fearless public policy advocate.
One of the conundrums about Frances Perkins is how she was lost to history.
We start with the New Deal and what happened after the inauguration in March of 1933. However, she led an incredible life before then. She watched in horror the events of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, so she was a witness there.
and she challenged the President of the United States. His data was wrong. In fact, unemployment was getting worse.
She was actually the impetus behind artists being included in the New Deal program.
Frances Perkins was severely criticized by the State Department and by others for her action. And I think that, among other things, made my father realize what a humanitarian, what an egalitarian this woman was.
Social Security, old age pension, the minimum wage, the 40-hour work week, the ban on child labor. These were all her ideas.
Our next featured guests are competing for the Democratic nomination for Maine's U.S. Senate seat, and one of them will defeat Susan Collins in November. Please join me in welcoming the first Democratic candidate for the United States Senate, Bree Kidman.
Hey friends, are you ready to rise and organize? My cats are. I get it. It's hard to build enthusiasm right now. Social distancing is hard enough, but these days a person can't even settle into a bad TV binge without getting interrupted every 5 minutes by another annoying political ad. The thing that really gets me is the way they've all become this massive showboating effort about who cares more about the pandemic when we all know that everyone buying up that ad space spent way more money on the airtime than they did helping actual Mainers deal with the economic crisis we're in. My team's taking a different approach. We are the only campaign in this primary that hasn't taken a dime from any PACs, and we are the only campaign in this race to spend over 75% of the cash we've had on hand at the start of this crisis on getting supplies to Mainers who are struggling to get what they need to shelter in place safely. That wasn't our original plan, but it's actually pretty darn close. Let me try to make a long story short. I got into this race because I knocked on Susan Collins' door in D.C. on the eve of the Kavanaugh vote. Armed with Supreme Court rulings and the Federalist Papers, I asked the board staffer what my senator was considering in her decision-making process, and all I could get her to share was she's got a lot to think about. As I left the office building, I heard people talking about the millions of dollars coming into the fund for Susan Collins' future opponent. And that's when two things clicked in my mind. One, all Susan Collins was thinking about was getting money for the election, and two, I was gonna find a way to take her job because I can serve Maine better. As a public interest attorney, activist, and performance artist, I never thought I'd run for office before that. Though I completed fellowships building public policy at both the state and federal levels, I figured non-binary queer survivors don't get to be senators. Imagine my surprise when I learned that being the first openly non-binary person to run for U.S. Senate isn't anywhere near my greatest hurdle. That dubious honor goes to being a median income Mainer who doesn't have rich friends. I know that sounds wild, but read any articles about this primary and you'll see what I mean. Coverage of elections bestow frontrunner status on candidates based solely on how much money they've managed to take from people to spend on ads and lists of more people to call for money. The hard truth is that our political system equates money with legitimacy because we don't push back. And for as long as that's true, our politicians will care more about getting money for the election auction than they do about being accountable to us and faithfully representing our interests in D.C. Susan Collins has years of experience buying up ads and refusing to show up anywhere she might be actually held accountable. And we're not going to beat her with a candidate who plays the same game. And we're not going to beat the political system that prioritizes the ultra-wealthy unless we can force candidates to do more to prove themselves than squandering resources on loudly proclaiming their own greatness. When I stopped actively fundraising in July of last year, my original plan was to use the campaign to raise money for local Maine charities. The idea is that simply doing good things and letting people talk about the way you show up for your community is infinitely more valuable than obnoxious TV spots and bulk mailers, and I stand behind that. We need to find a way to make elections work for us instead of letting millions of dollars from losing campaigns go to waste year after year. If the money we spend on elections went towards efforts in the community benefits, and voters learn more about how a candidate uses resources to address issues. COVID-19 has forced us all to adapt and consider our resources, but if Maine can expand testing for the whole state on $5 million, just think about how far that $4 million fund for the nominee would go to help people in need. It could turn into over $200,000 in relief for every county in Maine, or it could evaporate into one more commercial between you and the next episode. It's up to you. Congress is, at its core, a body of people who decide how to use our shared resources. We have seen millions of dollars go to advertising and donor lists in this race, and trillions of dollars go to corporate bailouts for the wealthy while we fight to stay afloat, because it's not just our elections that go up for auction. The candidates that the DSCC handpicked without asking voters are raking in big bucks all over the country, and it's not a coincidence that all of those candidates oppose common sense policies supported by a majority of Mainers, like Medicare for All and the Green New Deal. They can't back those policies without risking the profits that the healthcare and energy companies pump into the political system, which means our values are being bought and sold too. I think we can do better than that. We are looking at a ranked choice election against the most unpopular senator in America in November. If there was ever a time for bold ideas to restore faith in our democracy, it's now. A vote for me says that you want Medicare for All, the Green New Deal, student debt forgiveness, criminal justice reform, and above all else, that you won't settle for a candidate who wastes millions of dollars advertising, telling you that they'll stop being complicit and try to fix the broken system just as soon as they get elected by using it. We are in a crisis. We deserve to be represented by people who aren't hounding us with daily emails asking for money when so many of us are unemployed, but rather people who are asking how they can show up for us now in our time of need. It is long past time we started expecting better from our candidates and elected officials, but it's only possible if we fight for it. So if you're ready to see someone show up for Maine and run this race in a way that Susan Collins can't even begin to compete with, seriously, can you imagine her trying to show a backbone like this? Rank me first on July 14th. If it is truly too far-fetched, your vote will roll over to your second choice anyway, but the more people who demand change by voting for someone like me, the more likely it is that a future candidate will take a hint about the fact that it's time to stop paying lip service and start showing up with the kind of action it takes to build a movement we can believe in. My name is Bree Kidman. Thank you for listening. Stay safe out there, wash your hands, don't touch your face, wear a mask, get some sleep, take care of yourself. I care about you. My contact info is right there in the corner, and I'm here if you need me.
Please join me in welcoming the next Democratic candidate for the United States Senate, Speaker Sarah Gideon.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the Maine Democratic Party for organizing this virtual rally. I wish we could be together, but I hope to see each of you in person soon. We're living through an historic and unprecedented time in the history of our state and our country. I know the challenges that Maine people are facing right now are unparalleled in our lifetimes, and that makes the work we all do together that much more important. What I've learned from our work together over the past few years and throughout our campaign over the past 11 months is that we can overcome whatever challenges we face if we work together. After all, we've faced difficult challenges before. For 8 years, Governor LePage tried to sow division in our state, but we didn't back down. Instead, we stood shoulder to shoulder to defend our values, and as his tenure came to an end, we got to work. We knocked on doors, made phone calls, talked to our neighbors, and organized everywhere across the state. Together, we elected Governor Janet Mills and Congressman Golden. We flipped the state Senate, we grew our majority in the state house, and we elected Democrats up and down the ballot. But we didn't stop there. By working together, we were able to protect health care coverage for Mainers with pre-existing conditions, expand access to health care for low-income Mainers, and make sure that reproductive health care and access to abortion were strengthened and protected for people across our state. We've set the most aggressive goals for combating climate change this state has ever seen. And as the coronavirus reached Maine, we were able to respond quickly and aggressively to keep Maine people safe. When we work together towards the same goal of making Maine a better place for everyone, we have the power to overcome any obstacle. And that's what I've seen on the campaign trail too. For 11 months, I've had the opportunity to hear from Mainers all across the state about the challenges they're facing. Before coronavirus, we hosted 19 Suppers with Sarah, bringing people together over food for our version of a town hall in communities like Jay, Damariscotta, and Skowhegan. I heard about how Washington County residents worry about how far they have to go to see a doctor. I listened to BIW workers talk about how important their right to organize is. And I met incredible individuals living at a recovery center in Augusta who told me about the challenges they face in the criminal justice system. But no matter where we went, we found that Mainers are ready to work together and are excited to help us defeat Senator Collins and win this race. And that has been especially true during the coronavirus pandemic. Our campaign team adjusted quickly to our new circumstance and worked together with their neighbors to make sure we took care of each other. We've raised money for Maine charities. We've called our neighbors to check in and make sure they're okay. We've donated blood, delivered meals to people in need, and volunteered at food banks. And through everything, we continue to find that Mainers are excited and ready to work together to win this election. I believe it's more important that we stand together now because I know that if we work together, we will get through these difficult times and we will win. And when we win, we will have the opportunity to bring the kind of leadership to Washington that Mainers and this country needs. Together, we will fight so that every American has access to health care that is excellent and that everyone can afford. We will fight to protect reproductive rights so that everyone can make their own decisions about their body. Together, we will speak loudly and acknowledge that climate change is an absolute emergency for us and that we need to take bold and immediate action to address it. And together, we will work tirelessly to end the influence of corporate special interests in our politics and pass meaningful campaign finance reform that will return government to the people. We can build the kind of movement here in Maine that will win this election and bring new leadership to Washington, that will put the interests of Maine people first, and we can do it together. Thank you, and see you soon.
Up next, please join me in welcoming the final Democratic candidate for the United States Senate, Betsy Sweet.
Last winter at the Long Lake Fishing Derby in Santa Gat, I went ice shack to ice shack talking with Mainers. The people there didn't care if I was a Democrat or Republican or right or left. They were happy to have someone there who listens and gets it. No broadband, healthcare we can't get or afford, and having to have 3 jobs to make ends meet. We need someone who cares and who will keep caring after they're elected. That's me. I'm Betsy Sweet, and I'm running to be your Democratic nominee for the United States Senate. I hope you and your loved ones are safe and that you have the support you need as we figure out a path through this COVID-19 crisis together. The coronavirus has turned our world upside down. But the problems that the Mainers in Santa Gat were sharing with me are now more urgent than ever before, and millions more are feeling them. 13 million Americans lost their health insurance in April alone because they lost their jobs. Tying health insurance to employment was never a good idea, but now it is clear that Medicare for All is our only path forward. 33 million Americans are out of work. Others have been forced to work, even though it's dangerous, because they don't have paid sick leave. And we are burying our loved ones by the thousands. This is so hard, but I know we will get through it together. The question now isn't just how to reopen our economy. The question is, how do we reimagine our country? It's time to reimagine how we live together, how we care for one another, and what we expect from our elected officials. It's time for visionary leadership that puts Mainers above political party and big-moneyed special interests. We can solve the healthcare crisis and reduce healthcare costs with Medicare for all. We can put Mainers back to work, break our deadly addiction to fossil fuel, and solve the climate crisis by enacting a Green New Deal. We can rebuild a new America if we work together with strength, compassion, and a clear vision for a healthcare system and an economy that works for us. I know something about making the impossible possible. I've done it before. I helped to write and pass the Maine Clean Elections Act, the first public financing system in the country that kicked big money interests out of our elections. I led the fight for Maine's Family Medical Leave Act, the first in the nation. I took on a legendary Maine governor, a Democratic governor, to pass an increase in the minimum wage. And I raised 3 girls as a single mom. Talk about taking on the impossible. I have one daughter who's graduated from college and twins that are graduating this year. College debt and college loans are a struggle. College needs to be free. Think about it. When we worked on the farms, public education went to 8th grade. When we started working in the mills, free public education was through the 12th grade. Now, we have computers and technology, and public education needs to be free through college. That is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about reimagining our future. And the same is true for Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, and jobs that pay a living wage. That's what I stand for, and that's what the Mainers I'm talking to need and want. I said this is our moment 2 years ago when I ran for governor, but it's even more true today. There has never been an opportunity like this for us to make big changes and move forward. It has been in times of great crises and deep depression that America has remade itself into a better country. The Great Depression brought us the New Deal and Social Security. The coronavirus can be our catalyst for Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, and an economy that finally works for us and not the CEOs and billionaires. I know this is a heartbreaking time, but it can also be a heart-opening time. This year, with ranked choice voting, you don't have to make political calculations. You can vote your heart in the primary and then again in November. And when we do, I think we will find that what's in our hearts is what Mainers need and want all across this state. We can have health care. We can have secure, good-paying jobs. We can have loving communities. And that's the winning vision for November. We will get there when we stand together, when we follow our hearts, when we act with hope and courage, and when we don't settle. We can turn this crisis into Maine's moment. That's why I want to be your United States Senator. So thank you. Be well, stay safe, and now, let's go change the world.
Not ready to say that you're endorsing President Trump for 2020.
I'm going to talk about 2020 and 2020.
Will you be supporting President Trump or writing in someone else?
I'm just not going to get involved in presidential politics.
All right. You support the president. We didn't get a chance. Did you ask? Do you support him?
I already answered that question.
I do see a couple of questions from our audience talking about whether you're going to vote for Trump. Did you vote for Trump?
Not a time for partisan politics.
We would like to thank one of our lead sponsors, American Roots. Here is the story of their transition to making face masks after the coronavirus outbreak.
I don't think you could ever define the resiliency and perseverance of the American people and the American worker more than right now, because what people are going through is unfathomable.
A couple of weeks ago, it's already here. Coronavirus starts killing people, and then it's affecting the companies.
I know I myself have been on a roller coaster, and I think most people have, of fear and perseverance.
We don't know where we are and then where we are going.
Our workers could have stayed home, collected unemployment, got additional aid from the government, and they made a choice in the middle of a national crisis, in a pandemic globally, to come to work and make masks for people they've never met before.
We're here helping our friends at American Roots.
We had begun the PPE process. Immediately we will begin production on face shield with the lead of FlowFold.
As you can see, we're taking all kinds of precautions just to keep ourselves safe and also to keep the people around us safe.
It is hopeful, and it is promising, and it's just a wonderful thing that we're able to bring our workforce back.
What those employees said when they raised their hands, and we had laid off 80% of them, they said, we will not be denied in making this country better. And in the first week, we put out 10,000 face shields, day and night, to get to people on the front lines. Our workers made sacrifices that I will never forget.
Along with our session sponsors and technology sponsors, we are blown away by the amount of support we receive from all across the state. Thank you to all of our sponsors who helped chip in to make this program possible and who are committed to electing Democrats up and down the ticket this November. Up next, he's the son of a logger and a public school teacher from Allagash. In the state legislature, he emerged as a healthcare champion, had led the charge to protect workers' rights, and has worked to promote good-paying rural jobs. And he was selected by his peers to serve as president of the Maine Senate. Please welcome Maine Senate President Troy Jackson.
Hey everyone, this is Troy Jackson. I have the honor of being the Senate President, and I'm finishing my last term as a DNC member for the state of Maine. In 2016, I was asked to be political director for Bernie Sanders' campaign here in Maine. And you know, I knew Bernie as far as for his work in Congress and Senate. I was a big supporter at that time, and I was really glad to join the campaign. The reality is I was pretty tired of politics and pretty disenfranchised with the way things were going. And Senator Sanders, his message, working class ideals, health care for all, things like that, actually really brought me back. Made me have real enthusiasm, interest, and inspired me actually to run again for the state Senate. And now, obviously, I have the privilege of being the Senate President here in Maine, which is a huge honor. But it's because of, people like Bernie Sanders that, I have continued to fight for the things I believe in. And this campaign was no different. When Bernie called me, almost the first thing on the phone was, Troy, I need you on my campaign. That's all it took really for me to get back involved. But it didn't work out for Senator Sanders and the presidential campaign. And I'm really focused now on making sure that Joe Biden wins this election. The person that all of us felt so inspired by, Senator Sanders, when we decided to follow him because of the beliefs that he talked about. And now that he's decided that, you know, he can't win, he's thrown his support behind Joe, it's pretty clear to me how important it is to do that. When the man that you've been following says that, you know, the time is up and he's supporting somebody else, that's a pretty clear message of, you know, where we should be going. And I know Senator Sanders believes in that because the things that he's so dedicated to fighting for, he's been talking about with Joe Biden. It's time for all of us to get enthused, get behind, get inspired about this campaign for Biden. Riding with Biden, like they said. It's time. You know, when I was a younger person playing sports, sometimes when we had a game and we lost, the coach always told us to go and shake hands with the winning team. It's time for us to shake hands, come together in solidarity, and fight for this upcoming election. Senator Sanders supports Joe Biden. I know that Joe believes in what Senator Sanders has fought for, and he's going to be fighting for those same things. So it's time to get behind Joe Biden. It's time for all of us, you know, to put the past behind us and start fighting for this next election. There's too many things that are too important, you know, for us to let go by the wayside. You know, I don't have a lot financially, but what I do have, it's too important to give up on. Things like health care for everyone, things like workers' rights, unions' rights, you know, making sure we have a good economy, a good environment, having somebody that, you know, really cares about the people and is going to fight for the working class people, the people on the ground, not the big corporations. So as much as I love Senator Sanders and actually have become a friend of his, it's time for us to coalesce, unite behind Joe Biden. And that's what I'm going to be doing in this upcoming election. And I encourage you and hope that all of you understand how important this is. And let's do this. Let's do this in November. Let's elect Democrats up and down the ticket so that we can start continuing to make good policy, good progress, good things for working class people, and make sure that no one in this country gets left behind. Thank you, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you. Take care, and God bless the state of Maine. God bless the United States.
Our next featured guest brings passion and energy to movement building that has ushered in a new generation of young people ready to transform this country. First elected to the United States Senate in 2006, representing Vermont, he has spent his career in public service, fighting tirelessly for working families, focusing on the shrinking middle class and the growing gap between the rich and everyone else. This year, he was a candidate for president whose ideas, energy, and leadership have strengthened the Democratic Party. Please join me in welcoming Senator Bernie Sanders.
Hello, and thanks very much for joining me. Today, I believe I reflect the overwhelming majority of the American people in expressing enormous sadness and anger at the vicious murder of George Floyd. This police murder is an outrage that strikes at the very heart of our society. But we have to bear in mind that this one murder is just the latest manifestation of a system that so callously devalues the lives of Black people. Over the last many years, both as a senator and a candidate for president, I have had the privilege of visiting almost every state in our country. In those travels, I have experienced some incredibly beautiful and inspiring moments with the people I met. But I must also tell you that I've had moments which made me embarrassed about the state of our country, meeting too many families in too many communities who have suffered from police violence and social and economic neglect. In most cases, these victims and their families have been denied justice by a system that ignores these ongoing assaults against the bodies and the dignity of Black people. If ever there was a time for us to address this egregious assault on everything our country is supposed to stand for, now is that time. Every killing by a police officer must be independently investigated by the Department of Justice. Every police officer guilty of a murder must be held accountable including those who stand by and do nothing to intervene. We need a massive overhaul of policing in America which understands that a lethal response is the last response, not the first response. But let us be clear. Police violence is not the only manifestation of the systemic racism that is taking place. Take a look at what's going on with the COVID-19 pandemic. In recent months, we have seen Black and brown communities disproportionately ravaged by the virus. We have seen workers who earn starvation wages forced to go to work day in and day out because without that paycheck, they and their families would go hungry. These working class families, Black and white and brown, have with enormous courage kept our economy and society together in hospitals, meatpacking plants, public transportation, supermarkets, gas stations, and elsewhere. These workers, Black and brown, have risked infection and death so that the rest of us can continue to eat, get our medicines, or put gas in our cars. But when we talk about systemic racism, we're not just talking about Black lives killed by police with no accountability. We're not just talking about Black lives killed by COVID-19. We're not just talking about a third of Black children in our country living in poverty and millions of Black kids going to totally inadequate schools. We're not just talking about Black women having a maternal death rate 3 times the rate of white women and Black families owning 1/10 the wealth of white families. Instead, we are talking about a system of pervasive racism that impacts every aspect of our lives. This has got to end. We need equity for Black people, for brown people, and for all who are marginalized and made disposable in a system and an economy that treats millions of people as unworthy of the basic decency of human respect. Our struggle is and has always been about justice. Not justice on paper, but real justice in the real lives of real people. Sadly, as we come together in the fight for justice, as we fight against racism, as we fight against massive unemployment and poverty, right-wing demagogues exploit moments like this to tear us apart and reinforce systems of racism and oppression. At this critical moment in our nation's history, at a time when we need a president who brings us together against injustice, we have a president who is opportunistically moving us down a path toward authoritarianism and violence. And he stands astride a grotesque system of ingrained racism and economic disparity that now more than ever needs to be ripped down. We've seen yet another sad example of this just the other night. While Trump claims to care about Black lives, he now publicly advocates for armed violence against people in Black communities. No, Mr. President, this is not a time to encourage police officers to do more shooting. That is exactly the problem we have to overcome. What a sad period this is for our democracy and for fundamental moral decency. Do I believe that Trump's views reflect the feelings of the people of this country? No, I don't. I don't believe that for a moment. I have looked into the faces of too many people all across our country, from every background, from every zip code. And despite their differences, what our people want is a nation that respects the fundamental human dignity of every person. That starts with justice for George Floyd. But it must not end there. We have got to end the racism, oppression, and massive inequality that currently exists if we are to have a future that is worthy of all of our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Sanders, for joining us today. Up next, please welcome Maine Democratic Party Voter Protection Director, Ryder Kessler.
Hello, fellow Democrats. My name is Ryder Kessler, and I'm the Voter Protection Director here at the Maine Democratic Party. This year, we're building a program to ensure every eligible Mainer can register, vote, and have their vote counted. Why? Because Republicans are more brazen than ever about using any means necessary to retain the presidency and their Senate majority, including challenging and intimidating voters. They're running a multi-million-dollar suppression effort, including here in Maine. With COVID-19 unsettling our ability to run elections normally, it's even more critical that we educate and empower voters to make their voices heard at the ballot box, even if that means registering and voting from the safety of their homes. That's where voter protection comes in, and it's where we need your help. You can join hundreds of other Maine people as volunteers for our program. Vote Pro volunteers answer calls to our voter hotline, make calls to voters whose mail ballots have been rejected to help them successfully cast a vote, watch the polls on Election Day to ensure no voter gets unjustly turned away, and monitor the review of absentee ballots to make sure every vote is counted. Sign up at voteinmaine.com/act to join or to learn more. But there's another way you can help this year. Maine needs a new generation to step up and serve as poll workers. Many towns are having trouble staffing the polls given COVID-19, and understaffing means fewer polling sites, longer lines, and more chance of viral spread. If you feel comfortable doing so, you can support safe and inclusive elections by offering to work the polls yourself. Sign up at voteinmaine.com/work to get started. Thank you so much. With your help, we can protect the health of Maine people and the health of Maine democracy. And don't forget to request your mail ballot right now at voteinmaine.com/ballot.
Our next featured guest is a native of Farmington. As Maine's Attorney General, she stood up for Maine people time and again, protecting health care for thousands of young adults and distributing tens of thousands of the life-saving overdose reversal medication naloxone. And now, Maine's first woman governor, she has expanded access to affordable health care, invested millions of dollars in public education, and fought climate change. And in the middle of a public health crisis, she's working tirelessly to keep Mainers safe and healthy. Governor Janet Mills.
Hello, fellow Democrats. I'm Janet Mills, a proud, lifelong Maine Democrat, and proud to be the governor of the great state of Maine. But boy, if you had told me when I was running for governor that in less than 2 years we would be confronting a global pandemic, the likes of which we have not seen in more than 100 years. A pandemic that would take the lives of more than 80 Maine people and sicken hundreds more in our state, taking their breath away. A pandemic that would harm every part of our economy and test the bounds of our patience. Well, I never would have believed it. But here we are, and I am on the job. The truth is, no governor expects or wants to go through anything like this. But as one friend told me, if you're going to be a general, it might as well be during a time of war. While our war against this invisible but deadly enemy still rages, one thing is clear. Elections matter, and electing Democrats saves lives. Remember how the previous administration decimated our public health system, cut the Department of Education and other vital services? Remember how the previous Republican governor left town and went golfing in Florida anytime things got tough? That's all changed. Your governor, this governor, is on the job. Before we ever suspected a pandemic was on our doorstep, with the help of good Democrats in the legislature, we had begun to restore the critical services Maine people rely on. On my first day in office, we put an end to the obstruction of the Republican years and fulfilled the will of the voters. We expanded Medicaid. Now, more than 53,000 people are able to see a doctor, get preventative care, afford critical prescriptions. We began rebuilding the public health infrastructure, which is now so critical in fighting this pandemic. We hired child protection workers to prevent tragic deaths like those of Kendall Chick and Marissa Kennedy, because we Democrats care and we believe in protecting children from abuse and neglect. And for the sake of all women who don't have access to reproductive care, we expanded Medicaid coverage for abortion and the scope of practice of those who may provide abortion care. We sent $62 million in support to nursing homes to raise the wages of workers who are caring for our most vulnerable people and who now are at risk of this deadly virus. And we strengthened Maine's safety nets to lift children and families out of poverty. We enacted prescription drug reform to lower drug costs. We enacted the Made for Maine Health Coverage Act, offering Maine solutions for small businesses and creating a marketplace to meet the health insurance needs of Maine people. I appointed the very first director of opioid response to bring the full resources of the state to bear on the epidemic of substance use disorder and drug overdose. I hired the best cabinet Maine history's ever seen. We successfully negotiated new state contracts with public employee unions and established in those contracts for the first time a provision for parental leave. We enacted the most progressive paid leave policy in the country, along with workers' comp reforms and pay equity legislation. We enacted a $40,000 a year minimum teacher pay all across the state, and we boosted state funding for education to nearly 51%. We restored the Maine Children's Cabinet. We protected LGBTQ youth from the dangerous and discredited practice of conversion therapy, and we prohibited transgender exclusions in health insurance. We joined the U.S. Climate Alliance, created the Maine Climate Council, invested in electric vehicles and heat pumps and solar and offshore wind. We withdrew from the LePage Outer Continental Shelf Coalition that would have allowed drilling for oil and gas off our shores, and we ended the LePage moratorium on wind power. And to heal the divisions of our past, we began to rebuild the state's relationship with Maine's tribes by banning Native American mascots in schools, by establishing Indigenous Peoples Day, by reinvigorating the Maine Indian Tribal State Commission, by enacting tribal sustenance fishing rights. We paid off the debts of the previous administration and stocked away a record $258 million in the rainy day fund. Twice in my term as governor already, Moody's and Standard & Poor's affirmed our state's credit rating and our financial stability, even during these current difficult times. As I look back on these dramatic months, what this pandemic has revealed to me is this: what Democrats fight for day in and day out matters. Affordable, accessible health care matters. A good public health system matters. A strong safety net helping those who've fallen on hard times matters a great deal. A government that is managed with honesty, intelligence, and compassion matters. There are those who will criticize. That comes with the territory. There are those who engage in Monday morning quarterbacking, something that's pretty easy to do. But today we know there is no COVID-19 playbook, no pandemic manual. But we see in other states and in our nation's capital what happens when we allow hatred and mockery to take charge. The failure of Republican leadership is clearer now than ever before. Robert F. Kennedy said, "It is easier to fall in step with the slogans of others than to march to the beat of the internal drummer. Far easier to accept and to stand on the past than to fight for the answers of the future." Today we reject the slogans, the mudslinging, and the midnight tweets of irresponsible politicians masquerading as leaders. In Maine, we care while hundreds of Maine people, Black, Indigenous, Latino, and Caucasian, cannot breathe because of a deadly virus. And we care miles away when we hear a terrible cry from the city of Minneapolis. "I can't breathe," a Black man screamed with his final breaths. Now, this weekend, thousands across the country and across this state protest race-based violence and the tragic death of George Floyd. As your Attorney General back in 2012, I told the convention, we, you and I, must give every effort, gather forces to reinvigorate our party, reinforce the House of Representatives, regain the Senate, elect a Democrat to the White House, and ultimately retake the Blaine House. Well, we've done a lot of that. The reasons are clearer today than ever before. We've got the House of Representatives, we've retaken the Senate, We've retaken the Blaine House. Now we must fight for the answers of the future. We must regain the United States Senate and retake the White House to prevent injustice everywhere and to protect the lives and livelihoods of all our people. So let us rise, let us organize a stronger party, a stronger people, and a stronger state. Let us harness our creativity to campaign in new and exciting ways to mobilize our fellow Americans and inspire the people of Maine. A brighter future depends on you. The future depends on us. So keep the faith and stay safe. Thank you, fellow Democrats, and Godspeed.
Up next, please welcome Maine Democratic Party Chair Kathleen Mara.
Hi, Democrats. It's Kathleen Mara, Chair of the Maine Democratic Party. First, I hope everyone watching this is staying healthy and working as best we can to stay that way and keep others around us safe. We are living in extraordinary times. Just days after opening our new headquarters in March, we shut the doors to all our offices and are now working to figure out how we win campaigns while possibly never knocking on a door, without holding an in-person phone bank, fundraising event, or county meeting. But our staff and volunteers and all of you have been resilient, creative, and determined. I am more sure than ever that we can win in November. This national crisis has only steeled our resolve to help bring positive change in our country and our state. It's clearer than ever that elections have consequences. We are in desperate need of strong, steady leadership. But instead, we have a president who is more concerned with his press conference ratings and which governors are being nice to him than with saving lives. It's appalling. Donald Trump's chaotic and unprepared approach to this crisis is putting us at risk, and Susan Collins is doing nothing to stand up to him. But we Democrats know the way forward. We know that we need to elect candidates who will work to build an economy that works for all of us, not just those at the top, who will expand access to affordable health care, who will fight for a safe and fair voting system, who will listen to scientists and experts, not relatives and cronies, and who will bring the country together. But to do this, we need your support. Please go to mainedems.org/donate and make a gift of $20.20 or whatever you can afford to help us build the team that will deliver victory in November. We don't have the deep pockets like Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump's special interest buddies, but we have something better, real grassroots support. Each gift helps to fund organizers, deploy technology that will help us more easily reach voters, and ultimately send Trump and Collins packing, re-elect Chellie Pingree and Jared Golden, and elect Democrats all across the state. And whatever you do, don't forget to make a gift to the Maine Democratic Party today at mainedems.org/donate. Thank you for all you do.
And now, to close the program, please welcome John Hennessy.
For those that don't know me, my name is John Hennessy, and I've had the privilege of working with the Maine Democratic Party to put on this amazing event today. In fact, I have been behind the scenes for 7 of the last state party conventions since 2002. I love the energy and momentum we build at convention and hope you have enjoyed today's virtual rally. I want to say thank you to our elected officials, candidates, award winners, and all our other featured speakers for joining our rally today. Thank you to the Maine Democratic Party staff and volunteers for working really hard to put on a great event. A special shout out to our wonderful videographer Jim White, our graphic designer Francis Love, and our lovely MCs Viva and Ed Golden. Thank you to all our sponsors for your generous support in making this event a success, especially our technology sponsors, Pretty Flaherty and the Maine Association of Realtors. Thank you to the Caucus and Convention Ad Hoc Committee, who tirelessly worked to facilitate all the online voting that would have happened at the convention. And thank you to all the Democrats from across Maine who tuned in today. We hope you're as fired up as we are and are ready to rise and organize together to make sure we elect leaders who share our values. One final note. You've heard a lot today about how you can get involved in our fight to win this November. Every one of us has to take an active role in making sure we succeed in our mission to elect Democrats up and down the ballot this November. If you haven't yet, take a few moments right now and visit maindems.org/volunteer and sign up to volunteer. As long as you have an internet connection, you can help from the comfort of your own home. We need everyone watching today to get involved because it's going to take each and every one of us working together to make sure our values win. Thank you once again for joining the Maine Dems Rise and Organize rally and for all that you do to support our mission. During these uncertain times, we wish you and your families well. Stay safe, stay strong, and let's all continue to take care of each other.
This now concludes the program. Thank you for joining the Maine Democratic Party Rise and Organize rally. Have a great evening.